Hello, my name is Ebony Jones, and today we are going to talk about the power of having great promotion and outreach. So, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I work in marketing and communications, been doing that for over a decade, working mainly in live music. Presently, I'm working with AAACC as a creative leaders fellow, and I'm helping them with their marketing and communications and helping other artists get the word out on all their projects. I'm joined today with Maria, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Power of Having Great Promotion and Outreach. My name is Maria Judice. I am a filmmaker, and like Ebony, I'm also an artist fellow at AAACC. My expertise at AAACC will be around storytelling, and particularly Black storytelling in connection to generational San Franciscans, Black San Franciscans, and the larger history of the Fillmore. I also work at Code Tenderloin as the development director. I also have a consulting firm called Indigo Impact, where we work on impact and outreach for film, art, and community organization campaigns. So we're really excited today to be the experts and super nerds around promotion and outreach. We'll be talking about everything from strategies from small businesses to art projects to products to makers. We'll be giving tools, we'll be giving advice, we'll be giving techniques. Ebony and I together, we've had some already great conversations. We'll be digging into our toolbox to give you some really kind of like expert insight and advice, and also give you kind of like the idea of like what to leave behind and throw away, because we know this can be overwhelming and exhausting. So yay, so excited to have you all here today.
So, first, let's talk about what is promotion. And promotion is primarily getting the word out about your project, event, artwork, and increasing awareness. So, this can apply to an artist, a filmmaker, an organization. And some examples of promotion would be social media, print ads, business cards, t shirts, and even other merchandise.
Yeah, and I want to add, like, let's not forget, we are the kings and queens, queens and kings, non-binary royalty of promotion. Like, Black people know how to promote. So, don't just think about the way that Twitter or Facebook or Uber or whatever big multinational corporation is promoting. Really think about like back in the day, when you were a kid or just growing up, or when you go to the hood, or you go down south, or when you go, East Coast, West Coast, wherever. Think about how you see people promoting. I like this lovely story is I was once in the back of a cab, and the cab driver had like this little box because his daughter needed surgery, and he just had the box and he had the label on it. He didn't address me, he didn't ask me about it or anything. It was just there in my purview, and I got to read everything I needed to and just throw money into his little box. And I think about that every day, like, look how easy it is, look how he's making it right in my purview, in my vision, and I have to stop and read about this thing that he wants to bring to my center of attention. And so I like to think about, we used to get CDs from the back of a trunks. We used to like just talk to neighbors and word of mouth, and that's how you knew where the party was at. So none of these things are ancient, they all still work. All right, that was my piece on outreach and promotion. Now I get to go into outreach. What is outreach? Outreach for me is really about relationships. It's about developing relationships. It's about creating partners and collaborators. And these will be people that you use throughout, the project life, throughout probably even your career life. And they're people that you don't just use one off just for a project, right? You develop them, and you develop them over time, and you build these relationships, and they can start off small. And I say no relationship and no partnership is too small or too big, right? There's this really great thing about just having, everybody, that kind of does what you do, kind of in the loop, in a circle, in a DM, in some kind of group conversations so that everybody knows what's going on. And a lot of times you have to be kind of the leader in this thing and just be like, hey, I started this little group chat. I see that you make clothes. You want to join? It's just so we can all like keep each other up to date on what's going on. And that's where then you would promote or ask for partnerships so that they can promote and do outreach on their channels. So you're also doing outreach to build your audience, right? Like part of it is like a huge thing, how to build an audience. Yes, yes, yes. This is going to be a whole other thing that either Ebony and I talk about, but building your audience happens in a lot of different steps. And the best way to build your audience is to be authentic, build relationships with your audience, and bring people in that you can kind of piggyback on their audience. And yes, you do share audiences. This is not a selfish world. We're not in this hyper capitalist competitive space. We are in a sharing, communal, collaborative space. And so you're really looking for audiences that already exist. You're looking to leverage audiences. You're literally looking to make relationships with audiences and know, really what your audience likes. And then there's also the piece of understanding stakeholders, right? That is also a partnership. So if you have, say, like a community organization that likes to do, say, fashion or like, and you want to give unhoused people clothes or help them, get dressed for their interviews, and then you want to like partner with Goodwill. Goodwill would be your partner. That partnership might not happen boom, boom, boom. It might take a while for that partnership to happen. So you want to say, I'm going to reach out to Goodwill. They're going to be on one of my major stakeholder partnership lists, and you're going to develop that partnership over time. Goodwill might just be like, we'll put it on our social for now. But then in a year, Goodwill might be like, oh, we're going to give you our logo, and that's going to be able to go on your thing. And that is going to increase your outreach because people are going to see that you partner with a major organization that is still in the wheelhouse of nonprofits and giving clothes away. So that's outreach. I know it's more complicated, but I just want to say, like, outreach is something that we do all the time within our communities. Like, outreach is something that Black folks are really good about. It's like pulling people in, gathering them for an event, and really helping get the event moving and popping off, because we're great at word of mouth and we're great at getting the word out. Do you have any thoughts here, Ebony?
No, that was a mouthful, but that was really good. I want to talk about the difference between promotion and outreach. And I know a lot of times, and people are hearing a lot of conversation now about branding and what is your brand. So, promotion is really breaking down what the artist or organization is building, and then they figure out how they want to brand it, how they see themselves, and how they would like the world to see them. Another thing in terms of like the difference between promotion and outreach is with promotion, you're getting your assets together. So you're getting the content you want to share, you're setting up your social media assets, you're getting your Facebook page, your Instagram, your what else is there? Oh, there's Twitter and TikTok. There's a lot of different sources, a lot of different options out there for you. So you want to figure out what is best for what you're trying to do. So I also want to kind of go into that makes you also while you're doing your promotion, you want to figure out who your audience is. That kind of helps you build everything out. If you know that who you're trying to reach, you have a better idea of how to reach them, and you're just not like all over the place. So you definitely want to define who it is exactly that you want to reach. So what do you see the difference between promotion and outreach, Maria?
Well, as I said, outreach is about relationships, and part of outreach is really to deepen these relationships. So as you start to promote, you might see a certain, fan that keeps liking your stuff. You might see a certain company or organization that's engaging in your comments or something like that. And that would be a key point for you to outdo outreach. You would want to deepen that reach and connect to that person and start developing that relationship with an organization. So an idea here is that there's not as much as a difference as much as like they work together, and really the promotion begins before the outreach, and then the outreach becomes this very intentional understanding of how you're promoting, who you're promoting to, what this audience looks like, and what like level of engagement and audience development and relationships each kind of segment has. um, and then like me and Ebony have talked about this pretty pretty in depth. Outreach is really a lot about lists, it's a lot about spreadsheets, it's a lot about analytics. Outreach is the place where you start to analyze these different audiences, but then also analyze your bigger business strategy to understand, you know, who you should be doing outreach to, who is already organically coming to you, and that you who you should be deepening that outreach with. And so we just have like many tabs of spreadsheets that we analyze every day, and literally it's like a tedious task of just making sure you send emails out, making sure you have reached out on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, whatever your social platform is, and then making sure you've done some level of outreach, and understanding what that level of outreach is. So it's lists. I love lists. I don't know if you love lists, Ebony, but I do.
I'm a big list person too, but they kind of stress me out. So sometimes I'm a list person, sometimes I'm not. Um, so let's go to like where a person gets started. What do you do first? What's your first thing? First, you want to like clearly define who you are and what it is that you do and why you want to share that with the world. Once you get that all together, then you will set up your online presence. And one thing that I really try to encourage people to do is when they're setting up their online assets, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, that they try to have consistency when they're setting up the names across the platforms. That way, if you're like, for instance, if you're at Maria Judice on Instagram, and then I can find you that same way on Twitter, that just makes it easier for me as a fan or a person of interest to follow you in different mediums to, you know, kind of see what it is that I like. So I know sometimes it's hard, especially if you have like a simple name, because it feels like a lot of names are taken. So you could possibly add the name of your city. A lot of times you may see someone uses 415 in their name. So that like lets people know they're from San Francisco. You could do 510 for Oakland, something like that. So once you have your online asset set up, the next thing is, who's the audience? Who do you want to have conversations with? Who do you want to bring into the fold? And that's when you move into Maria's area about outreach. So in terms of outreach, Maria, where do you think a person should get started?
Well, list, you know? So outreach really becomes this question. We skipped one question, but we'll go back, is to have your plan together about what your promotion and outreach plan looks like. So once you start to have that plan together, you start to identify certain lanes you want to be in. So for instance, if I'm doing fashion, I want to understand all the manufacturers that are in my city that are doing fashion. I want to understand all the fashion artists that are doing something in my, I want to understand all the retail stores that make sense for my brand and what I'm working on, because eventually you will want to do business with them. But right now, what you're doing is just promoting and outreach what you do to them, right? So it's all, I like to say it's always about like these small steps and like touches with people. You don't have to go super hard, right? Like we're not trying to do a big business deal when we do outreach. What we're trying to do is be like, hello, my name is such and such. This is what I do. You know, follow me. And that's it. And then next time you say, hey, I see that you're following me. Hey, did you know that we could be collaborators or partners? I would love to put whatever you're doing in my newsletter. Would you like to do the same with my stuff and add me to your newsletter? And so that way you're leveraging their outreach, and they might have like a 30K newsletter and you might have a 3K newsletter, or you know, vice versa. Either way, all outreach is good outreach, is what I like to say. But your first step is literally sitting down, taking the time to create a list that says who, what, where, how am I interested in being connected to these people, organizations, right? And that might change over time. Who you are in your first year of business might not be the same person your fifth year of business. So you're constantly doing this work every year. I pretty much sit down with Maria to ask about how I would like to do art, where I would like to see my films be seen. And I make sure that I'm doing that outreach when I'm offline, right? Not when you have something 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the pipeline. You got to do that like all year, right? And again, developing relationships. It's not just about like, hey, can you do this thing for me? It is literally about, hey, my name is this. Oh, that's amazing. Do you want to meet? Do you want to talk? Or do you just want me to send you EPK, which is an electronic kit package where you just basically put all those assets and all that information in there, and they can kind of like read through it. Even a pitch deck helps. They can read through it and see like, oh, they seem cool. I want to collaborate with them. I want to be a partner. I want to be a sponsor. How do I sign up to be a sponsor for your thing? These are all, as Ebony, I think has already said, these are all assets that you would put together first. And so that when you're doing that outreach, it's like literally just a little email and some kind of doc that they can read. And then if they say yes, they go on the list.
All right. So yes, that is something that I just kind of want to reiterate is that you do need to have your promotional plan together and completed before you start outreach, because that makes your outreach so much easier, like Maria was saying. So we want to touch on what are some of the mistakes that people make when they're doing their promotion and outreach. And one thing that I've seen is that a lot of times people think they're ready when they're actually not. So you definitely want to spend the time, like Maria said, making those lists, getting your plan together, promotional side, outreach side, and just being clear on what it is that you want to communicate and who you want to communicate with. Um, Another thing that I feel is very important when you start your promotion efforts is having a clear, defined voice and like tone that you use. That's how you kind of tap in with your audience. So if you're marketing to Gen X, you're going to talk one way. Whereas if you're dealing with seniors or another audience, you would develop your language to be more in line with things that they're familiar with. But one thing we do want you to do is we really want you to stay authentic to yourself and just, as they say, keep it real. Maria, do you have any other suggestions for where a person should get started or what they should do with when they?
Yeah, I mean, especially when it comes to rookie mistakes are being a bit too eager and not spending the time to be intentional in the outreach and the way the outreach happens, right? Like, even if you do know that person well, you don't want to just send an email that's like, hey, bruh, or send them a text message or a DM that's like, share my whatever, or can you put this on your story? You really want to take the time to be like, especially if you know them, you want to say like, hey, how are you? I have a new project going on. I would really love if you could share it on your social. Let me know. No stress if you can't, but thanks, Maria, right? That's something I always do with all my outreach. And if I don't know the person, I say, hey, how are you? I realize we're both into fashion. I've been following your fashion brand for a really long time. I'm trying to create this like group of like-minded folks so we can help promote each other's stuff. Would you like to be in this promotional circle? It would just require you to share my stories and I'll share your stories. And that is the quid pro quo that you put in agreement, right? And that person says yes or no. But you see what I'm doing here? There's a certain level of like etiquette, there's a certain level of manners, there's some certain level of like humility and not assuming or not having expectations that they're going to do the thing that I need them to do or want them to do, right? Like, really, you have to approach everything, as I like to say, intentional, be present, be authentic, and find a way to really be respectful of another person's time. So also, whenever you send an email, huge mistake, make sure your links work. Don't send me some your links work. if you're asking somebody to post something, don't send them a PDF, send them a ping. A ping is an actual picture, a file format that can be posted in Instagram and can be posted in Facebook or whatever else you're using. A PDF is not. And then I have to then format that PDF to a ping, and you're asking me to do work on a project that is not mine. Always create posts, like literally just write it out, say, hey, here's something I wrote, you can copy and paste it. You can also modify it if you want, but I'm doing the work for you to make your work easier. Don't send a 3-page email. Send an email that's like half a page. Oh, I got a lot of mistakes. Like, people do this to me all the time, and I will politely send back to people like, this is a lot of work for me and I get nothing out of it. So unless you send me everything to be really easy, I can't do it. And I think that lets people know the standard of what they're asking, right? And so it becomes very easy to share other people's content or put them in your newsletter or whatever, or have this like relationship established. So that's probably a long-winded one, but girl, I got so many things on how mistakes can be made in doing outreach. But again,
And what you said is so important. If when you're doing the outreach, if you make it simple for the person that you're reaching out to, the likelihood that they'll do what you're asking is so much higher. And it makes you feel good. And like you said, everyone has 50 million things going on. And we do want to support other people. We're not just silos, we're not self-centered. We want to share this. And so you make it easier on the people who are working with you, it's just more beneficial for everybody. I want to talk about 3 tips that help effective promotion. And one of the things, like you were just touching on, is you have to have a clear message. This is why it's so important in the beginning to write everything down, get your ideas flushed out, and figure out who you are, what you're doing. That is your messaging. Another thing, like you just touched on, was you need to be brief. Brevity is everything. I hate a long email. I get a long email, I mark it as unread because I'm gonna have to get back to that at another time. But if it's something short and sweet, that's like my love language. Oh, this is quick. I get it. It's simple. I don't have to scroll. That's a winner for me. And another thing that you want to do is once you have done all this hard work and you're starting to promote, you want to be consistent with it. You don't want to go out with a big old bang and then in 30 days you're like, dang, when's the last time I did a post? So you want to be consistent, especially like with a newsletter. I know you touched on that a minute ago. Like, newsletters are a huge gem. Some organizations, you'll see it in your email. Mine are always coming from department stores. Sometimes they're sending 2 and 3 emails a day. But when you get started as an artist or an organization, sending an email weekly or bi-monthly is a good way to get started. You send it on Tuesday afternoon, your fan base will start looking for it on Tuesday afternoons. So that's another thing, is that you want to develop some sort of consistency with what you're doing, so that when people go to your pages, when they go to your sites, they see that, oh, they're moving along. That wasn't just a one shot, one little quick hit and quit. This is something that a person is really dialed into, and they have a commitment towards it. So once they're committed and have consistency, you can roll and be on board with them. So you want to tell us about some 3 steps about the outreach?
yeah, I do. I just want to also touch on when Ebony said have a clear message. That's a part of your original plan and strategy. So that is also a part of storytelling. So you want to make sure you have a good story, a story that is communicated well, communicated simple, communicated consistently through all your platforms, whether digital, whether they're physical banners or postcards or business cards, or where they're videos or media that you're advertising, things that you're putting together. The story must be consistent across all platforms. And so spend time to really make a story, to draw out a story. Ask your employees, ask your staff, really think back of like why you made this business, why you're doing this art project, and that's a part of your story. And your story is going to set you apart from others, right? Like, lots of people do fashion. why is your fashion different, right? Yes, you make your clothes well. Yes, you have great style. Yes, you have a good eye. But people need to know more of that story about why you're doing this thing. And they need to be able to see it in all the digital promotion and outreach tools that you're using, all of those assets. Um, and so now we're getting into 3 tips to create effective outreach. I'm going to reiterate everything Ebony just said: have a clear message, brevity, and consistency. And then when you really get to outreach, authenticity is really, really, really important. I know we're in the era of social media fatigue, but if you are using social media, do not let go of this idea of taking the time to write a post that really is connecting to your story and to your audience. As much as you want to have that intern from high school or college come and just do a bunch of your social media, do they know your story? And is your social media coming off too robotic? Is it coming off, to high school high school kid, like they using too much slang? Are they trying to be too cool? There is a fine line, and you'll find it for yourself, and it's different for everybody in the world. So really find the time to find your authentic voice, right? To really find your authentic story. Focus on relationship building. Goes back to authenticity, but as you focus on relationship building, every post, every engagement and comment in that post will literally create your outreach, right? Instead of just like heart, 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 great, I got 40 comments. Really spend the time to like read through those comments, like respond to those comments that are actually asking questions that make sense. Or if somebody's like super duper in love and it's just gone off about whatever the product or project that you're working on in the comments, really spend the time to be like, thanks, Ebony. I appreciate all your words and your insights. Like, wow, right? That it will be a fan, follower, and audience member for life when you do that. Don't be afraid of how people do outreach, of how our people do outreach. Embrace aspects of how we live and move through the world. I like to say Black people are still very much a cash business. So I like to think about those things when I'm putting together events, when I'm planning things, to figure out like, are my people going to come, and have I met them where they are? Is it easy? Are they on Facebook? Are they on TikTok? Are they on Twitter? Are they down the block just hanging out at the corner store, and I can literally just go down there and just talk to them, right? That is outreach. Like, as much as we want to be like, outreach has all these cool things and all these cool digital tools we're using, outreach is literally going to your church, to your PTA meeting, to a hangout at the park, to spread the word and get it out. And pull in your bag digital assets that you might have. You might have a poster. When I travel, I usually travel with a nice little bag of postcards, because sometimes I'm just like in the line and randomly talking about movies. And I'm like, oh, well, here's my movie. And I give them a card. And so they have all the information there. But that relationship that I've spent time to develop by having this conversation is a lot stickier than, say, me putting a post on Facebook, right? That person who I talk to, who is a barista or works at Nordstrom or whatever, is definitely going to do the Google search to go find my film with all the information, because they have the card and they got to meet me and there was a conversation. So don't ever dismiss that kind of stuff. Please really just think about like how outreach has come to you, how you've actually done something that somebody's asked. What makes you want to click? What makes you want to go to a thing, right? So yeah, just pay attention. Black people are masters at outreach. I just want to say that we are the original phone tree. We're the original selling CDs out of the back of a trunk. We're the word of mouth, right? Who did you hear from? My girl Ebony, she told me about the thing. And so really think about that, and think about embracing that, and not necessarily just as feeling or relying on corporate, like the ways corporations do outreach, and because they always steal everything from us anyway. So anyways.
Yes. I want to get into what are some of the trade secrets for outreach and promotion, and kind of like what you just said. We are our best marketers. So we're talking about all this online stuff and things in the digital world, but we can't forget those human relationships, human contacts, the barista person you may strike up a conversation with waiting in line at a store. And those are very important too. And like you said, you had your postcard for your movie ready. So this is why once you get all of your promotional pieces together, whether they be digital assets, physical assets, have the stuff with you. And you have to remember that you are your best marketer. Another thing you were just saying, like once you get a fan and you interact with them online, how you have a follower for life, that is so true. I always try to go through like my Twitter followers and try to delete some people, and you'll like get to somebody that you might have connected with 8 years ago on Twitter when you were like on there all the time. And they may not have posted in 3 years, but you got this connection. You can't seem to unfollow them. So like I'm guilty of that. I'm like, well, are they still doing this? I gotta keep following them because in case they come back, I want to be here for it. So that is one of the trade secrets, is just knowing that once you have committed followers and fans, it's like having a family member, and that building your community is just very important. And once you get those things dialed in, you'll see that it just gets easier. It becomes more natural. This is just who you are as an artist, as an org. You're just constantly building a community, sharing your info, sharing what you're doing, and keeping people up to date. What are some trade secrets you think of or that you use, Maria?
I love what you said too, and it just made me think about I've pretty much given up on most social media platforms, but Twitter. And so if you follow me on Twitter, you see I'm very active on Twitter, and I'm very
Oh
active.
yeah, yeah. Last week you were upset with Venmo.
Woo!
Not
Vimeo,
Venmo,
Vimeo.
Vimeo, the video
Still,
people. You felt like you were being held hostage. I went through
I
it with
still feel like that, boo
you.
boo.
Okay.
Still mad at Vimeo for whatever the hell they doing with their company right now. And there's no alternative. Trust me, I spent all week trying to find an alternative. But so see, like I have a community on Twitter, and if I have a problem to solve, right? So think about this also with your community and with your audience that you're building for the thing that you do in your company. Like they're willing to help you get to that next level. They're willing to give you money. They're willing to buy your products. They're willing to problem solve, like, your business issues. Like Vimeo tripled the price on their membership and I'm pissed off. So I'm like, hey, anybody got alternatives? And then I got, immediately 10 comments that gave me, alternative lists. And that becomes very helpful. And so that's why I end up on Twitter, is because I actually have a very good, robust community that I get to use, and they get to use me, and we kind of share information around my films. And so, and not just films, but they know me as somebody who works in nonprofit, and especially for homeless and unhoused and formerly incarcerated people. They also know me for my filmmaking and the films that I produce and get out into the streets. And so it makes more sense for me to spend a lot of time on Twitter and very little time on the other platforms. I haven't deleted them yet, but I spend much less time there because the work that needs to be done is with my stickiest, audience, which is on Twitter. So I'm just thinking about, like, I actually think about like them. Mostly, like, I think about them. I'm like, how is, bread and butter doing, because nobody has weird real Twitter names.
Hey,
um
Brandon Butter.
yeah, and so I really think about that. And I know it's a digital and a virtual space, but again, back to being intentional and authentic. Like really use these spaces in a way that is like being with them in person as much as you possibly can. And then my other secret is back to the way Black people move, and the way we do our things, is text message is still a highly responsive form of communication. And so don't disregard it. Don't disregard the community that you have that is at your core, that wants to support you. I always tell people whenever they do like a crowdfunding campaign, if it's your first time, guess who's going to support you bigger than anybody else. Your mama, your grandmama, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your bestie. And you're just gonna have to move through that first time of pushing anything out. But yet you have to practice doing outreach to them. You have to understand how, sending them a text message, because grandma doesn't do email, or she's not on Facebook, or maybe grandma is on Facebook. And so she wants it on Facebook so she can share it with her friends. And grandma plays bridge every Thursday, so she got a lot of friends. You have to see how these ripples all come together. But I will literally sit when I have any project going on, and I'll just go through it while watching a terrible detective show, and I'll just like text message homies and just scroll down my phone. And I'm not text messaging them like copy and paste. I'm text messaging them, hey, how are you? I have a new project. And then I copy and paste the thing. And then immediately they text me back, oh, hi, what's up? What's going on? Also, this looks super cool. Awesome. And then we have to do a little chat because we're catching up on each other's lives. All good. I wanted to do that shit anyways. And now they know I have a new project and they're committed to helping me push it out or join it or buy or whatever the thing is. So text messages, really cool. And even in statistics of communication, text message and newsletters tend to be still number one over social media, and especially as there's social media fatigue, so.
Yes. Another thing, like you were saying, when you're reaching out to grandma, you're reaching out to friends, you're reaching out to family. And so a lot of times we get very comfortable with that. So we always want to be mindful about our etiquette and how we're coming across. So most of us Black folks, we were raised right. We know right from wrong. So you just want to hold on to those core values and don't become like a douchebag on social media. Be that upstanding person that your mom, your grandma, your dad raised. And, it goes back to authenticity. Be authentic, have some manners, show etiquette. Those are very important things to not forget when you are doing promotion and outreach. So I know everything that we're talking about sounds very overwhelming. It's a lot of pieces, it's a lot of moving parts. And so you might say, well, how do I do all this? So one thing that I love to tell people is schedule a time to do it. You're probably going to be thinking about it all the time, but you may just want to sit down, give yourself 2 hours a day, 5 hours a week, whatever you're able to commit based on your life responsibilities, something realistic, but carve that time out, because you'll say, oh, on Monday from 10 to 2, I'm working on this. Also, another thing that's very important when you're scheduling your time is think about when people are on social media. Are they really on late night? I know West Coast people seem to be on internet later, but I don't know what that's about. But that is one thing that I've noticed. But I do not want to also say that a lot of times when people are at full-time jobs, they scroll Twitter, Instagram. That's a perfect time for a newsletter to hit somebody's email. When you're at work, another great time is like during lunch or near lunchtime, 1, 2 o'clock. It's like the ideal hours to get promotion stuff out for maximum viewability so that you can get it in front of a lot of eyes. What was another thing how do you manage your social media? Like, what do you do to get yourself through, Maria?
Yeah, so for me, I will say I also manage a few accounts. And when I first started managing in the accounts, I started to try and have everything on all social platforms at all times. And that was a lot, plus my own accounts, right?
Too
And so
much.
what I've really kind of taken a step back is to really identify which social platforms I'm actually eager to be involved in, and which social platforms make the best sense for that particular organization, right? And Instagram's very good for pictures, right? Like, so if you have a lot of heavy text stuff and you do a lot of things that need actual writing involved and you need to drop links, I really suggest Twitter. I suggest Facebook, and if you have the audience there, great. Now, if you have the audience that is mostly on Twitter, don't worry about the other two. Like, do the other two only, sometimes, or, really, really make time for that down to like 5%, and the other like 95% is Twitter. It's not a big deal, right? Like, really back to again what we're saying, being intentional and being authentic. So I like to also just point out, like, try not to do a lot of things where you're sending a big group email to a bunch of people. Spend time. I'm promoting something right now, and I kind of just know that I'm promoting it through the week. So I wake up and I say, okay, you're going to promote this thing to 3 new organizations. So that's either me writing emails to 3 partners that I've identified my strategy to say, hey, how you doing? Just wanted to put this up in your email box. Like, this event's going on. I'd love if you could share it, blah, blah, blah. And I do that to 3 organizations a day. Or I drop it in 3 groups that I'm a part of on Facebook a day. And that my work is done, right? Like, I don't have to spend a lot of hours at it. I just have to sit here and say, I'm doing this. I know who I'm doing it to. I know how to address them and how to engage with them and how to have this communication. And I'm doing this up until the event pops off. So I have 3 weeks to engage and do outreach with folks. And it's going pretty well. And my capacity is great because also I have to make the thing happen, not just promote it. I also have to like do all this work to make the thing happen. So, you don't want to get caught up in overly promoting to the point that you're worn out and you've lost capacity. So yeah, break it down in steps, I think, is important. Making sure that you're excited about the work that you're doing, having a solid plan, and you really don't have to do it all. Figure out where your audience is and really be intentional and purposeful in that space that they're in.
That's amazing. Yes. All right. Well, I hope that the tips in this conversation provided some useful information to you all. We would like for you to stay tuned to AAACC. You can go to AAACC.org on the web, and you can follow their social media platforms. We've got some great things coming up as we are heading into the season of Black Arts. If you want to follow me and stay on top of what I got going on, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at EBROCKER. That's Ebrocker. That's a friend that my homie, a Jamaican homie in New York, gave me that name. He said it like, "Oh, Ebrocker." So when I first got online, that's what I became. But people like call me EB Rocker. Like, it's all over the place. It lost its authenticity. But I'm Eb Rocker on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook. I'm also on TikTok. I think I might have added an A to Eb Rocker on TikTok and on Discord. As I'm moving to Web3, I'm trying to maybe change my name up a little bit. But we'll get into Web3 a little bit later, another time. Maria, can you let them know how they can follow you?
Yeah, so you can follow me mostly on Twitter. I am going to tell you, I am mostly on Twitter. You can follow me at Maria, Maria, another A, my middle name, which I'm not going to tell you what that is, Judice, Judice. So Maria A. Judice. It's on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I believe it's the same on Discord. I am not on TikTok at all. I don't see myself going there. I'm much more of a forum girl. I really hope these forums come back. I really like forums. I like reading a lot of information that I will never ever use. So Discord is fun for me. But yeah, and then please follow Code Tenderloin. There's lots of great things around resume development if you're interested in that. And we did a great class with Shaw on resume skills. So Code Tenderloin at Code CODE, Tenderloin TENDERLOIN. And then Indigo Impact, where you can learn about all the films I work on at Indigo Impact, very simple. This was great. I love this. I'm excited for all these sessions, and then watch more sessions from Eboni. She's going to be bringing more insights from her art fellow things, and I will be bringing a few more from mine. So great to have everyone today.
Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.